The first full mission of Hitman is titled The Showstopper, and is set in Paris. It was released March 11th, 2016, along with the tutorial missions as a starter pack for the episodic release of Hitman. This was the first content released for the newly rebooted series. Each mission of Hitman begins with an optional mission briefing, which can be viewed from the menu. I highly recommend watching these, as they're not only slickly produced, but they do an excellent job of setting up who the targets are, and why they're being taken out. The Paris level is set at a fashion show for the world-famous line called Sanguine. The targets are famous fashion mogul Viktor Novikov and retired supermodel Dalia Margolis. The two fashion superstars secretly moonlight as the heads of a secret spy organization, Iago, who acquire any and all top-secret information they can get their hands on and sell it off to the highest bidder. Novikov is the face of Iago, while Margolis is secretly the brains. The two have acquired a list of British secret agents, their locations, and their assignments, and are secretly holding an auction among the world's elites on the top floor of the Sanguine fashion show. MI6 are not too happy about this idea, and have hired the ICA and 47 to take out Novikov and Margolis and stop the secrets from getting out. MI6 have specified that Margolis is the priority target. Taking Novikov out is also a mandatory part of the contract, but he's less of a threat than the crafty spy master Margolis. The Sanguine fashion show is an incredible first impression for this game. The tutorial missions already felt populated, but the second you walk into the entry hall of the mansion where the fashion show is taking place, and see the crowds filling the room, you realize the scale this game is going to be working at. The color palette and design of the mansion is stunning. The twilight dusk which the game takes place in emphasizes just how gorgeous the game can look. Hitman is that rare blend of technically impressive graphical fidelity and top-notch art design that makes it one of the most impressive looking games I've ever seen. Usually I find games with realistic art styles boring, but Hitman doesn't use its realistic art style as a crutch to ignore design. The flashbulbs of reporters as you enter, the way fabric flows, the incredibly smart sightlines and thoughtful set direction all work together to make an incredible looking location. I am, for the most part, unless otherwise noted, playing the game including the older missions in the PC version of Hitman 3, which has had some noticeable graphical upgrades from the original release. But everything I'm saying here is still true in the 2016 game. Okay, I'm going to give this my best attempt once, and then strategically avoid saying the name of the mansion for the rest of the video.
Palais de Walewska.
Palais de Walewska. I'm sorry. The Showstopper is set in a large mansion called
Palais de Walewska.
And its surrounding gardens. The mansion's bottom floor typically serves as a museum, but it's been converted for the Sanguine Ice fashion show. The bulk of this level is set inside the mansion. When you first start, you'll be dropped in front of the main doors, with the fashion show and party going on just inside. Straight ahead of the entrance is the catwalk itself, with the densest population of NPCs you'll find in the level. It's the first area most players will explore, and it's the densest and most overwhelming place in the level. The looping music beat that you can hear leaking out of this room is the core audio identity of the mission. When I think of the Showstopper, that beat is the first thing that comes to mind. The first time you see the catwalk and realize just how public it really is, it seems impossible to take anyone down there, but it secretly holds some of the best opportunities. To the left of the entrance, you can find the dressing room for the fashion show, where Sebastian Sato, in charge of the models directly, patrols in charge of the show. To the right of the entrance is the bar, where you can find people mingling. Curiously, in this area is one patrolling guard who is a universal enforcer, who will become suspicious of 47 even in his basic suit. There are very few of these universal enforcers in the game, and they're usually justified in the game's story, like the members of the Maelstrom's gang in the Mumbai map being suspicious of outsiders. There's no real reason why this guy should be a universal enforcer, so I'm pretty sure it's just a bug. Also in this area, you can find the museum gift shop. Below all of this is a staff area, and one of the first areas to enforce the strong aesthetic difference between the public areas meant for the wealthy and the more utilitarian steam tunnels below meant for staff. This distinction will be a motif through the entire game. Down here is the kitchen, security room, wine cellar, and other various staff rooms. There are a few opportunities for assassination down here, but it's excellent for finding tools, getting costumes from secluded NPCs, or quickly crossing the level unseen. It also contains a useful escape route into the catacombs which Paris is famous for. One nice touch down here is that in the locker rooms in the basement of the mansion, you can find one woman who has broken down crying because of the cruelty of the uppity rich people she's expected to serve.
What's wrong with her?
Everything's fine. No, everything is not fine. They are treating me
job, kitten. Okay?
What, being treated like crap by pompous assholes? Easy now. It's gonna be okay. You know what? Just imagine that they're all naked. It's an old self-help trick I learned. It works, I promise. I can't go out there. I can't. Come on. I'll be right next to you as much as I can, and I won't let those rich idiots get to you.
You promise?
I promise. Now, let's go out there and serve the crap out of them. And maybe spit in a glass of champagne or two. Thank you.
It's a nice touch that the game doesn't only humanize the villains, but also manages to add character to the anonymous, unnamed NPCs that make up the majority of each map. On the second floor of the mansion are mostly more staff areas. This is generally the most sparsely populated floor of the mansion, mostly populated by AV crew, catering staff for the Iago auction above, and security. There's also the Sheik's room on the right side of the mansion, and more museum storage on the left. The main point of interest on the third floor is the Iago auction, where the world's elite meet to bid on black market secrets, guarded by bodyguards from the Cicada PMC. Also on this floor are Margola's private room and private office, as well as the attic, which has been converted into Cicada's base of operations, overseeing the Iago event. This attic is also where the scaffolding for the main lighting rig above the catwalk is available, if you're able to do some creative climbing without being caught. Outside of the mansion, the parking lot and gardens are accessible, surrounding the building, although very few of these sections will be available without a disguise. Behind and to the left of the mansion is a hedge maze, secured by Cicada bodyguards. Sneaking back there is a great chance to get a Cicada uniform that can take you all the way to the top floor of the mansion. Straight behind the mansion is a helicopter landing, providing another useful escape, and the entire back of the map is bordered by a river with fireworks barges intended to send the fashion show off with a bang. To the right is a garden, supply shed, and a river access route containing an elevated platform perfect for potentially sniping targets, if that's your speed. But what of the targets? The first, Novikov, is easy to access, but hard to isolate. The game's schedule is set so that the first time 47 enters the fashion show, the first thing you'll see is Novikov, in a spotlight, descending the staircase to join the party. I love how the game immediately puts your first real target quite literally within reach, but in such a public area that trying anything will almost certainly get 47 killed. The puzzle of taking Novikov out ends up being how to lure him away from the party, or else how to get rid of him while he's surrounded by literally hundreds of people, preferably without being seen. It's unrealistic to take out every last person along Novikov's patrol route, and what's worse, he has a private bodyguard shadowing his every move. Dalia Margolis is harder to reach, hidden away on the very top floor of the mansion running the Iago auction. She's in a much less public area than Novikov, and once you reach her, she's relatively easy to take out. But getting to her is the challenge, as every obvious entrance requires making it through 2 to 3 security checkpoints, as well as having an invitation to the auction in the first place. So, with the task of taking out 2 heavily guarded and extremely public fashion moguls ahead of you, how can 47 possibly succeed? The highlight of this mission, and perhaps the most famous opportunity from the entire trilogy, is becoming Helmut Kruger. Almost as soon as you enter the fashion show for the first time, you'll see large banners with the face of the star supermodel of the show, Helmut Kruger. You'll also notice that Helmut Kruger just so happens to look exactly like Agent 47. NPCs gushing over how handsome Kruger is will even comment on what a striking resemblance 47 bears to him.
Speaking of, that guy looks a lot like Helmut Kruger.
Yeah, uncanny.
If you track down Helmut Kruger, you can find him agonizing over a meeting he's about to take with Dalia Margolis.
Yeah, Dan, it's me. Oh, you're watching the live feed? No, not anytime soon. Actually, I'm doing this thing for Dalia Margolis. It might take a while. Don't ask. Of course you'll get your 10%, Dan. Look, we both know that I'm past my prime. There's no way but down, Dan, and it's not like I've been an ascetic here. But this way, if I do this, I can leave the game with some startup cash. A lot of startup cash, actually, and I can go into business on my own. Well, I'm thinking facial products. Maybe underwear? Anyway, I gotta go, Dan. I'll see you in Cali, okay? Alright, yeah, ciao.
Take him out and you can become Helmut Kruger, take his cell phone, and call Margolis yourself. Before your meeting, she stresses you have to walk the catwalk, so you go get 47's makeup done and head out. The comedy of 47 being able to solve a chess puzzle that stumped a master in the tutorial was relatively underplayed, but this is the first time we get to see 47 being absolutely competent at something he would have no reason to be. Of course 47 can convincingly do a strut on the catwalk as if he spent his whole life doing so. He's Agent 47. It's hilarious to see a master assassin walk down perhaps the most public place possible, and even better to see it work. The entire game is built around the idea that people see uniforms instead of faces, an idea that is to some extent true, and I bet you could get surprisingly far into a surprising number of places in real life doing so. But the game has the smart idea of pushing that idea to its illogical conclusion almost immediately. If you doubted the power of disguises in this game before, you won't anymore. After 47 does his little turn on the catwalk, you can go upstairs and meet with Margolis. The subject of the meeting, it turns out, was her recruiting Kruger into her supermodel spy ring. It's all very Zoolander. She needed Kruger to walk the catwalk to catch the eye of Jessica Highmore. As she explains the plan to 47, he picks it up instinctively.
As it happens, I have the perfect assignment for you. Jessica Highmore.
Highmore Consulting.
The very same. That's why I wanted you in the show, so Jessica would notice you. Now, I want you to go to New York, seek out Jessica, and do what you do best. The girl is bright, young, beautiful, and should be right up your alley.
And yet she's not the mark.
My, you do catch on fast. No, that would be her father, CEO John Highmore. Jessica is your way in. Befriend him, get his trust. Highmore Consulting is planning a merger. I want to know with whom and at what price.
All right. Consider it done.
And that's for you. Keep it on you at all times. Last resort.
Cyanide. Good choice.
Just after giving 47 the pills, Margolis receives a phone call and turns her back to 47. This offers the perfect opportunity to slip the pills into her glass of champagne. Once her phone call is over, she'll propose a toast to their new professional relationship, and she'll be done for. Hilariously, if you wait long enough, you can follow the real Helmut Kruger as he eventually makes his way to the catwalk and up to the meeting with Margolis. Everything 47 gets right in the conversation, Kruger gets wrong.
Love the outfit. So, you accept my offer?
Yes, but I get to pick and choose. I do have standards, Dahlia.
Oh, naturally. As it happens, I have the perfect mark. Jessica Highmore.
That Jessica Highmore? Didn't her sister fall off of a roof or something?
I see you read your gossip columns. Now pay attention. I want you to go to New York, seek out Jessica, and do what you do best. The girl is bright, young, beautiful. Should be right up your alley.
So what did she do to you?
Do try to connect the dots, Helmut. Jessica is just a means to an end. The real mark is her father, John Highmore. Befriend him, get his trust. Highmore Consulting are planning a merger. I want to know with whom and at what price.
That's it?
For now. That's for you. Keep it on you at all times. A last resort.
A last resort? You must be joking. That isn't what I think it is it?
Horrified at the implication of handing him cyanide tablets, as well as generally confused about who the target is and why, Margolis views him as absolutely incompetent. A Drink to Die For is the only mission story which takes you to the staff areas in the basement. It's also one of the most straightforward in the level. Outside the party, you can hear two members of the staff talking about how Novikov keeps requesting a specific and obscure drink called the Bare-Knuckled Boxer. You can also hear Novikov harass the bartenders for not knowing his favorite extremely obscure cocktails. If you weren't convinced he needed to die for all the murder and espionage he's done, this'll do the trick. If you steal a waitstaff uniform and sneak into the basement, you can find the recipe for this obscure drink. Pop back up and mix the drink, and leave it on the bar for Novikov. The next time he makes his way by the bar, he'll see it sitting there and take a drink. If you've lethally poisoned it, he'll be handled right then and there. Otherwise, you can be hiding in the nearby bathroom, waiting to drown him. Novikov has a criminal history, and while he's publicly gone straight, intelligence agencies around the world are preparing a case against him. Specifically, there is an FSB agent named Max Decker milling about the bar area of the party, who has been told to wait for a bodyguard to escort him to meet with Novikov. If you become a Cicada bodyguard, you can escort the agent to his private meeting with Novikov in the hedge maze behind the mansion. It turns out the agent has brought the last remaining copy of the file on Novikov, which an FSB agent named Kemerov had been creating, and has ensured all backups of the file were destroyed in exchange for an unspecified sum of money. Decker knows Novikov is behind the death of Kemerov and tells him, "Whoever you hired, I want his number." Novikov assures him that he does not. After the file has exchanged hands, Novikov dismisses the entire security detail from the gardens, as he wants a moment alone to savor his victory. This gives the perfect opportunity to snap his neck and dump him in the river. If you follow Novikov earlier on, you can hear more specifics about what the deal was that saw Kemerov dead. You can eavesdrop on a conversation with his personal assistant about how he exchanged the entire Iago dossier with someone in exchange for him killing Kemerov, and setting him up as an American spy. The conversation also notes that Margolis is unhappy with this exchange. Upstairs in her private room, you can hear Margolis discuss her take on Novikov's deal with the mystery man in exchange for the entire Iago dossier with her own personal assistant. One of the main named characters in the map is Valerie St. Clair, the owner of a magazine named Showstopper, which has been trying to expose and discredit Viktor Novikov for years. You can first hear this mentioned by the reporter immediately as you enter the level for the first time.
St. Clair, legendary editor-in-chief of Showstopper magazine, has long been one of the most vocal critics of Viktor Novikov's quote-unquote thuggish stranglehold on artistic integrity, and has defiantly boycotted sanguine shows in the past.
On the first floor of the auction, you can overhear Valerie St. Clair and one of her reporters named Liza Mackenzie talking about losing contact with Haley, another reporter who has been planted as their mole inside Iago. Valerie and Liza know about the Iago auction upstairs, and Liza is freaking out that they're all going to be killed. Valerie, however, has been trying to expose Novikov's criminal activity for years, and sees the opportunity, talking Liza into infiltrating the auction as a representative of the Van Orten Tobacco Company, in order to get evidence of the auction's activity. If you follow St. Clair after this conversation, she can be seen talking directly to Novikov, and taunting him with the dark secret she's uncovered. You can then hear Novikov call Margolis, and tell her they have a situation. If, on the other hand, you follow Liza, and eavesdrop on her as she goes to the bathroom, you can hear her make a phone call to another employee at Showstopper, telling her what's going on, admitting that she's not actually going into the auction, and telling her where to get the file and send it to the police, if anything happens to her or to St. Clair. It's also a nice touch that if you take out Liza, she drops an invitation to the auction. There's no real reason to do this. The easiest spot to take her out is the bathroom, directly adjacent to the one that has an invitation just lying there, but again, it's nice attention to detail. On the top floor of the Iago auction, you can overhear Margolis' secretary, Haley, talking to one of the Cicada bodyguards about how scared she's become of her employer. This is, of course, the same Haley who is working for St. Clair as her mole, and is terrified of being discovered and killed. You can also discover the laptop which is running the entire system for the auction in Margolis' private room. Stealing a Bluetooth USB that kills the laptop lets you take down the system. Once you've done this, Haley will panic that Margolis is going to have her killed for the system crash. The bodyguard, Jared, tells her he's figured out who she really is, and if he can figure it out, Margolis probably has as well. He tells her that he's going to escort her out and help her escape. The two of them leave, which leaves Margolis' office mostly unguarded. With the auction down, Margolis will angrily march into her office, expecting Haley to be there and get chewed out. When Haley isn't there, Margolis decides to try fixing the system herself, which leaves her alone and easy to take out. In the gift shop area of the mansion, you can overhear a reporter, Lana Caprice, talking on the phone about being in urgent need of a camera lens. She's scored her big break, an interview with Viktor Novikov, but needs the proper lens for the camera before the interview can begin.
Palais de Walewska. It's downtown at... Yes, the Sanguine Fashion Show.
No one will bring her one on such short notice, and she's panicking that her big break is going to slip away. In the parking area just outside, which is off limits to partygoers, you can find a news van from another outlet. Sitting just inside of the van is the exact camera lens which Lana needs. If you smuggle remote explosives in during your mission planning, or sneak up to the Cicada post in the attic and retrieve remote explosives, you can conceal them inside of Lana's camera, and then give her the lens.
Excuse me, miss. I couldn't help but overhear. Is this what you're looking for?
Oh, God, yes! Yes, thank you so much. Oh, what do I owe you?
Just glad I could help.
Thanks, mister. You're a lifesaver.
She will excitedly thank you for your help, and go to interview Novikov. You can overhear the bodyguard who calls Novikov refer to Lana as the other one, the nobody, presumably referring to Novikov expecting a later interview with the reporter from the entrance, whose camera lens you stole. Wait until Novikov is close to the camera, and you can blow him up. One of the guests at the fashion show is the Sheik, Salman al-Ghazali. A famous recluse, he's retreated so far from the public eye that no one is even quite sure what he looks like. Sounds like he could probably be a 6-foot-tall bald gentleman with a South African accent and a barcode tattooed on his head, right? This route is definitely one intended for later playthroughs. The Sheik can be found on the second floor in his own private office/bedroom. Once you're in the room with him, he's easy to take out, with only a single guard in the room. But the trick to this is the window of opportunity closes very quickly, as the Sheik leaves his private room and heads up to the Iago auction almost immediately after the mission starts. The best way I've found to become Al-Ghazali is to start as an AV tech, which sets you a short jog away from the private room. Once you've become the Sheik, you can go nearly anywhere you please. None of the security staff are going to question an honored guest. You want to go to the staff area? Go right ahead. Backstage with the models? You're welcome to. With no enforcers, this makes it the best disguise in the level for some basic exploration, or poking around and learning the level. More importantly though, Dalia Margolis is expecting Al-Ghazali upstairs at the auction, and no one would dare frisk a foreign prince. You can stroll upstairs with whatever concealed weapons you like, attend the auction as Al-Ghazali, and even bid on one of the lots of black market information. If you do so, Margolis will ask to see you in her private room, to express gratitude for your business, directly under a chandelier. Probably the most elaborate, and easy to break, mission story in Paris is Lights Out. You can overhear NPCs in the level talking about how ramshackle the massive lighting rig above the fashion show is, and how easy it would be for the entire thing to come crashing down. This would be a great way to take out the target, if only Novikov was going to be on stage. Unfortunately, he's put Sebastian Sato, the lead designer of the show, on the dock to give a speech during the show rather than himself. If Sato were unable to go on, then Novikov would be the next in line to give the speech. Sato can be found patrolling the dressing room to the left of the entrance. Because of his highly public location, he's very difficult to take out. Luckily, while killing Sato will do the trick if you find an opportunity, you don't necessarily have to. You just have to keep him from being able to go on stage. Sato is extremely stressed between the demands of the show and Novikov's abusive behavior. He's also just been announced as Novikov's successor as the head of Sanguine, as you can overhear from a reporter at the entrance of the level. To make things worse, because the mansion normally operates as a museum, the room which Sato patrols contains a diorama of an old battle, one which loudly plays a recreation of the battle, complete with a deafening overture, if you insert a coin. Pick one up off the ground or use one of the ones you brought into the level, and play the diorama's show, and Sebastian will lose it, and immediately start drinking to cope. If you've used emetic poison on the drink, then he will immediately get sick. This ends up being the last straw Sato needs to abandon the show, and go sit in the gardens. If this is completed, then when Novikov goes to fetch Sato for the speech, he'll be unable to, and will take the stage himself instead. Sneak up to the attic and onto the catwalk for the light rigging, and you can break the supports, dropping a rig that must weigh thousands of pounds directly onto Novikov's head, along with the heads of half the crowd. If dropping the rig involves a bit more collateral damage than you're comfortable with, then note that there is also a challenge for taking Novikov out with a headshot while he has his big speech, which would have a similar setup but reduce the body count. While you're backstage, you can hear two techs discussing how excited Novikov is about the fireworks barge for the end of the show, and telling each other to be careful not to bump the remote and set the fireworks show off early. If you get a tech costume, you can easily grab the remote and trigger the show earlier on purpose. Novikov will be extremely upset and will rush to the back of the mansion to watch the show, which gets him isolated enough to take him out fairly easily, which is the most obvious end of this mission story. Above Novikov, however, Margolis will also want to watch the show from the Iago auction. If you sneak into the auction, this is a very easy way to take both out at once, as you can push Margolis from the upper levels down onto Novikov's head.
Both targets are down. Great work. Now head towards an exit.
You can even hear Margolis making fun of Novikov as he throws a tantrum below. This is also the easiest way to take the targets out as a sniper, as sneaking a rifle up to the elevated platform behind the mansion and triggering the fireworks show gives you a perfect line of sight on both targets. There's a challenge to take out both targets with a sniper rifle within 15 seconds of each other, and this is the easiest way to do it. Whichever method you choose, it's a fun way to get rid of the targets. That's the last mission story in Paris, but there are a ton of other fun ways to take out targets in the level. Hidden upstairs in the attic, you can find a costume called the Vampire Magician. Most of these levels have one of these high suspicion outfits that are extremely goofy and essentially worse than just wearing 47's suit, usually tied to some sort of challenge. For example, one Paris challenge is to assassinate Margolis by dropping a chandelier on her while dressed as the Vampire Magician. These high suspicion costumes are a lot of fun, especially once you've learned the map backwards and forwards. It's also really fun to drop the chandelier above the Iago auction onto Margolis' head during her big speech, although it's public enough to almost certainly get you killed. One unmarked way to get into the auction is to attend as yourself, or rather as 47's favorite alias, Tobias Reaper.
United States.
Good evening. I don't believe we've had the pleasure, Mr.
Reaper. Tobias Reaper.
Your bids.
I'm a friend of Victor's.
I see. I wish I had been informed. Well, no matter. Do enjoy the auction, Mr. Reaper. I will see you later.
Looking forward to it.
Some attendee of the auction accidentally forgot their invitation in one of the ground floor bathrooms, and if you're willing to pass a frisk check, 47 can use the invitation to get in. If you can manage to pull Novikov's personal bodyguard away from him and take him out without being caught, you can get his cell phone. This lets you call in a Code 17, which puts both Novikov and Margolis on lockdown, evacuating them to a storage room on the west side of the mansion's second floor. You can make this work to your advantage by planting a remote explosive here, and taking both out in one go. Paris is the first full level of the game, and also introduces the concept of mastery, a level system for each map of the game, typically going up to level 20, with rewards varying from extra mission starting points to items which can be taken and used in other maps. I'm not going to talk about all of these, mostly because I don't want to say, and here's another gun you'll never use, over and over again. But I am going to talk about some highlights. Alternate map starting points and agency pickups work almost like a fast-forward function for the game, for when you want to set up a kill, but don't necessarily want to go through the trouble of getting all the way into a restricted area, often letting you skip forward to a later location in a useful disguise. This mission gives you several useful tools as mastery rewards to take into other levels, such as a sedative poison vial at level 2, which will instantly knock out anyone who drinks it, a lethal poison vial and a sedative syringe at level 15, and a remote explosive at level 20. You can get 2 alternate silenced pistols at level 11 and 20, which are 2 of many unlockable weapons in the game. The weapons all have unique perks and characteristics, but honestly, with a few exceptions such as sniper rifles, I pretty much just think of them as alternate skins. The most amazing and hilarious item you can get is Napoleon Blown Apart at level 10. This is a remote explosive shaped like a small toy Napoleon, which plays music and distracts targets into picking it up when noticed.
Okay, back to business. You gonna tell me about what...
Also, since it's shaped like a toy, you can walk right through a frisk with it in your pocket. It's great. I love Napoleon Blown Apart. Highly recommended. The experience to gain these mastery levels is earned by completing the challenges I've referenced before, incentivizing playing the game in a number of interesting ways. Of course, my personal favorite thing of any Hitman level is looking at the Easter eggs and the insane details hidden in plain sight. Let's take a look. If you step between the cameraman and the reporter at the very beginning of the mission, they'll get angry at you for ruining the shot.
Cut!
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Real considerate. Mind staying out of my shot?
If you step away and do it again, they'll get even more upset and decide to take a smoke break until you leave.
I'm standing outside delayed. What the hell is wrong with you? Go away!
Come on. Don't encourage this asshole. Lindsay, let's just go for a break. Probably coked out of his mind.
The Sheik, Salman al-Ghazali, later reappears in the Miami mission, and another member of the al-Ghazali family, Sheikh Omar al-Ghazali, is the creator of the Burj al-Ghazali, or the Scepter, the mega skyscraper setting of the Dubai map of Hitman 3. The briefing mentions that Iago has sold secret flight plans to the Delgado cartel, which they used to take down a plane holding one President Hernandez. Members of the Delgado cartel appeared as targets in Hitman Blood Money, and appear again later on as the targets of the Colombia map of Hitman 2. Andrea Martinez, a member of the Delgado cartel and one of the targets of Hitman 2's Colombia map, can be found at the Iago auction.
want to be just like you, Mr. Kruger.
You'd have exactly 12 measly bucks. We've got eyes in Washington too, husband. Touche. Hey, is it really true that your village was burned down by a gang of outlaws when you were 12?
You can push a piano closed to lure an auction staff member in as a distraction, then knock someone unconscious with the same piano as they try to set it back up. That's great. I love it. In the bedroom next to where Al-Ghazali can be found, you can find a gun under one of the pillows on the bed. As you tail Margolis, you can eavesdrop on her talking about other spy situations she's got going on, such as one to infiltrate the Church of Ascension. If you take out the guard in Margolis' room, she will say, "Something is amiss, we're one guard short, so sloppy." It's a nice touch emphasizing how sharp she is, especially compared to Novikov, who won't even notice if you take out his private bodyguard. You can get a challenge for throwing a coin in the fountain at the entrance. That's it, that's all. It's a fun touch. There is a man on the top floor named Tren Po, who will call Jordan Cross, one of the targets of the Bangkok level later on, and ask for his band The Class to write a song for his coronation, which every citizen will play twice a day under threat of forced labor. When Helmut Kruger refers to Jessica Highmore's sister falling off a roof, this is a reference to Jordan Cross's murder of Hannah Highmore, a key plot point of the Bangkok level. One of the women at the auction is trying to pay Margolis to see her favored candidate win an upcoming election. Margolis tells her it will be handled, and shortly afterwards, you can hear her get a call that Thomas Cross has donated a large sum of money to her candidate, obviously nodding to Margolis and Cross being connected through Providence. Backstage, you'll be able to find one of the tech crew awkwardly trying to flirt with one of the supermodels at the show, while she complains about some of Sato's more absurd outfits, such as a literal straitjacket.
Well, at least this line looks like real clothes. That intestines thing show I did with Sato last year? Not so much. And then there was the year before with the straitjackets.
Yeah, I think you'd look good in just about anything. Intestines, straitjackets, you name it.
Aww. Look, I gotta run. But I'll see you later, okay?
Hey, well, conversation without saying something dumb. Jerome, making progress.
Unique dialogue exists for both Novikov and Margolis learning that the other has been killed in an accident. Interestingly, Novikov will be skeptical of the accident and upset if he learns that Margolis has been killed, while Margolis will take Novikov's death in stride.
I see. Yes, I'm fine. Look, you can let in the police, but we keep them downstairs. I'm not closing down this auction because
I've arrived at the location and it
stupid
looks clear.
poetic justice. Let's get one thing clear. Victor wrote the checks, but this is my operation. Always was. Good. Now keep me posted.
The logo on the trucks for Mini Sushi catering the party is the same logo used by one of IOI's previous games, 2009's Mini Ninjas. You can hear two NPCs outside of Margolis' room discussing a book on the fashion industry, which details her backstory as the black sheep daughter of an Israeli military leader.
Margolis' dad was some overzealous Israeli army general. He did not approve his daughter chasing a dream. Disown and won't defend for herself. I guess that explains her demeanor. Hey, fashion is tough, okay? I mean army tough. Her father, he should really been more approving. Anyway, she went all the way to the top, and then, just as her career was slowing down, she met Novikov. Nouveau riche Russian with a bad boy reputation, looking to turn over a new leaf. So, Dahlia persuaded him into buying Seaweed, and she launched her own modeling agency. With his money, of course. Yeah, say what you will, but the girl is charmed.
You can eavesdrop on Novikov's personal assistant Philip having several phone conversations at once. Mixed in with things like ordering more champagne for the party, you can overhear him repeatedly putting his father on hold, who is in the middle of a heart attack.
Not now, Dad.
Best cocktail in the world.
Wait, heart attack?
No, nothing.
Yeah, are you sure it's real this time? Wouldn't just be another cry for attention, would it? Just hold on. Cordelia, talk to me. Yes, Dad. Dad, stop rattling. I can't hear a word you're saying. Oh, God, hold on. Philip. Mr. Holbrook. Yes, I can confirm the transaction.
Paris is a powerful mission statement for this game. 5 years and countless runs later, I can still replay this mission and discover new details every time. It's actually one of the smaller maps in the series, especially compared to the next map, Sapienza, but it's extremely dense and full of memorable characters, details, routes, and moments. It's certainly one of my favorite levels in the first game. I'm focusing a lot on the mission stories here because they are some of the most interesting and compelling content in the game, but it's worth noting that taking the targets out without using those more scripted methods is extremely satisfying. In fact, Master Mode difficulty disables most of the mission story methods, and requires extreme familiarity with the map, and how to manipulate the AI within it in order to succeed. It's incredibly satisfying, and a lot of the most fun moments come from finding your own route to success that the game didn't necessarily account for, but which is allowed for. The Paris map is great for that, with pipes that let 47 shimmy up and around the sides, tunnels that let you slip around the map unseen, and plenty of heavy objects to drop on NPCs' heads. I don't think there could be a better first level for the game. If the Paris map were as large as some of the later maps like Sapienza or Miami, it would be overwhelming as an introduction. If it were smaller or felt more sparse like Colorado or Hokkaido, it wouldn't so effectively convey the tone of the game overall. Paris is the perfect way for this series to kick off. After the mission, a cutscene titled The Secrets of the Global Elite plays, set one day before Agent 47 arrived in Paris. Viktor Novikov meets with the mysterious man from the prologue's title sequence. The man says he's arranged for someone named Kemerov to be killed, and to make it look like he was an American spy. In exchange, Novikov hands him a file containing The Secrets of the Global Elite, which makes WikiLeaks look like a gossip rag. The player sees this man texting someone that he's retrieved the file, and sees him open the very same contract on Novikov which Agent 47 was supposedly fulfilling for MI6. No loose ends.
The pen beats the sword, huh?
I have found that whoever wields the sword decides who holds the pen. Smile, Victor. Your reputation is safe. Now run along. I'm sure you have pretty dresses to attend to. Victor. Good luck with the show. I have a feeling it's going to be the one you'll be remembered for.
This is interesting because it reveals that Novikov was the real target all along, while the mission briefing made it clear that MI6 were more concerned with Margolis being taken down, with Novikov being more of an accessory. So begins the story of the Shadow Client, a mysterious man who is secretly behind the seemingly disparate contracts forming the bulk of the first Hitman. The mystery of who this is and what his goals are is the core question of the meta-story of the first game. Next, we move on to Italy, and the seaside town of Sapienza.